after, TravelWise focuses on today's trouble spots. Next, your weekend outlook and the 5-day planner. Right now, your local forecast. This is WeatherScope.
The first mission to the moon in 25 years is standing by to launch at Cape Canaveral, and the weather is cooperating. These are live pictures from the Cape. The Lunar Prospector is sitting atop an Athena rocket. The probe will orbit the moon 63 miles above the moon's surface. One big question the Prospector will answer: is there ice on the moon? The launch is scheduled for the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned. Well, right now we've got some rough weather in the U.S. Let's turn it over to Kristina Abernathy in the Forecast Center.
If we do have some rough weather, a lot of wet weather and storminess along the Gulf Coast right now, affecting Texas and Louisiana and on into Mississippi. Let's take a look at what was going on in Dallas earlier today, and certainly some wet weather there. Water running high and fast in some areas around Dallas. This is the Trinity River White Rock Lake area. Heavy rains across this part of Texas have swelled rivers and streams. Flooding also is a problem on some roadways, so be careful if you're out and about. Let's see what we've got going on out there right now, and you can see just how widespread the rain is, and this area of rain is not moving much at all, so we continue to see heavy amounts of rain in Texas and Louisiana and moving into Mississippi. And again, because of the slow movement, we'll see torrential amounts of rain as we already have seen, and there is also the potential for storminess. We're joined now by senior meteorologist Tom Moore, and Tom, this is not something that we see very often in January, but boy, are we dealing with a lot of rain and a lot of warm weather.
A lot of warm weather. Every once in a while you get a storm of this magnitude. Even that isn't a common occurrence. But they have all this warm weather, especially east of the Appalachians, with 70s all the way up to West Virginia. Very unusual.
We have very high dew points. We have a lot of moisture in place, and we also have an area of high pressure that's really not allowing this to move much at all. And we can see that pretty clearly on the water vapor, as we can see where the moisture is and where that high is. That's just not allowing the system to move.
Right, where it's dark, we're looking at the dry air because we're measuring water vapor here, and then we have lots of cloudiness where it's light. So there's the high off the Atlantic coast. With sinking air, we don't get any clouds. It's like putting a block right in the middle of a stream. Nothing can move to the east. You can see these clouds are moving to the north as the storm system develops. You have a disturbance of the upper atmosphere here, and a low pressure and a cold front in here, and the clouds moving much more to the north and to the east. So we're seeing a ton of rain, with thunderstorms continuing to propagate and move, and will eventually envelop the entire southeast.
We see very widespread rain here. We've already run into flooding problems in much of Louisiana, into Texas. Harris County reports of some of the roads nearly impassable there because of all of the rain, and it's very slowly going to be inching off towards the east.
Right, there's a disturbance in the upper atmosphere with a lifting mechanism to provide a lot of rain, and a cold front in here. The rain will gradually taper off in this direction around the Texas coast this evening, but we still have some vicious weather in Galveston Bay right now, and even into Louisiana we have rainfall rates 1.5 to 2 inches per hour, and eventually this will move to the north and creep slowly to the east. So this is a very significant rate event.
And just to give you an idea of what kind of moisture we're dealing with, these dew points in the 60s and 70s, and that's incredibly high for this time of year especially.
That's incredibly high for the spring or the fall too, you know, let alone the winter when you have almost 60 dew points up into New York City. Lots of moisture in the atmosphere, and with a developing storm in a front and a blocking high, all this moisture is going to get wrung out, and that's why we're going to see so much rain even up into the northeast.
We have flood watches in effect, obviously, numerous flood warnings, but anywhere in the darker green area you need to look out. And one thing we want to mention is that you should never drive through any areas where water covers the roads, and that's what we're already seeing in these areas. Stranded automobiles, not a wise thing to do. Heavy amounts of rain have already fallen here, and it just keeps coming down. The estimates are pretty incredible here through northern Louisiana and eastern Texas.
Right, in many areas around the Gulf Coast are going to see over 10 inches of rain from this event, and it looks like everybody's going to see 1.5 inches to 2 inches.
Another concern we have, severe storms, especially as we head towards the coastal areas.
Right, along the cold front, and then maybe along the immediate Gulf Coast. Now tomorrow, as low pressure moves up to the north, we'll have a sharp cold front in here, and we'll probably shift our threat into Alabama, maybe even parts of Georgia as the dew points are high. So even though this is mainly a rain event, there will be some severe weather with it, so we'll have to watch that too. So tomorrow we'll continue to see this heavy rain, and this is going to go out into the northeast the next day.
Okay, thanks for your update, Tom. And we want to remind you that if you need updates and you're away from your TV set, please be sure to check out our website at weather.com. But for now, we're going to head back to the studio for the rest of the country's weather.
Thank you, Kristina and Tom. Well, you've had another very wet day along the coast of the Pacific Northwest, and typical wintry weather in many areas of the Rockies. You had light snow overnight in the Denver area, but it had tapered off by the morning rush hour. Snow covered many of the vehicles, but look closely and you can tell who parked in the garage last night. You've had a sunny Tuesday in the Mile High City, and the temperature rose all the way up to 33 degrees. Checking on current conditions in Denver, we're kind of in between storms. We've got one upper level disturbance moving through the Great Lakes. That's why it's been raining in Chicago and in Flint, Michigan, Ludington, Michigan also. Here comes that next one that's creating all the stormy weather down here in Houston and into New Orleans, Louisiana, amongst other places. And then here comes another storm into the west, and it's pretty windy along the Redwood Coast in Northern California. And that's generally the pattern. It's been the pattern. Storms come in, drop down, get juiced up, slow down, flood us like crazy in Texas and Louisiana and elsewhere where flood watches are in effect here tonight. Meanwhile, to the east, it's just been getting warmer and warmer and more humid. Look at 58 degrees out at LaGuardia in New York City. In this warm sector, there were some record highs today. Norfolk 75, Bristol, Tennessee at 69, tying the record. Jackson, Kentucky, Washington, D.C., Bluefield, West Virginia, and on and on. So to the east of that front, it is like springtime out here. And when it gets like this, I don't know how you feel, but when it gets this warm and humid on January the 6th, you got to figure that storms are on their way, especially in the southeast. And they are. We'll keep you posted on that for the rest of tonight and tomorrow. There's our mixed bag of rain and snow in the west. It's raining north of Seattle right now, and you don't have to venture too high up into the mountains, even the foothills, to find snow. We're expecting snow about 1,000 feet in elevation just outside of Seattle here tomorrow. It's been raining in Portland, raining in San Francisco now, raining in Ukiah, so we're getting hit by another storm, but this storm does not have the tropical connection as the one east of the Mississippi River does. That one does. So rain is in the forecast. It looks like a wet or foggy commute here in the northeast back into Detroit. Rainy, foggy, stormy, that's the story here all throughout the southeast, with some sunshine to start off here in Orlando and Tampa and Miami. A chance of some afternoon thunder showers there. Then we work into some colder air, 22 degrees your wake-up temperature in Minneapolis, 37 and drizzly in Chicago. And here in the Pacific Northwest, there's your rain and snow and some wind as our next storm makes its way in off of the Pacific Ocean. As you can see, dragging an area of low pressure in toward North Dakota. But that other storm in the lower Mississippi River Valley pretty much stays right there. So there's going to be some more flooding while all the snow is in the cold west. Well, it's time now for tonight's El Nino Focus. It is ocean and atmosphere working together that make El Nino a force for climatic change. Jim Cantori explains.
In normal non-El Nino years, the surface of the Pacific Ocean along the coast of South America is cool, about 8 degrees cooler than the surface in the western Pacific. That's because of the trade winds. The prevailing trade winds in this part of the world are from east to west, and those winds push the ocean's surface along with them. That piles warm water up in the western Pacific. Sea level is about 1.5 feet higher near Indonesia than at Ecuador. And because the surface water is moved west, the cold water from deeper levels rises toward the surface off South America, sometimes to within 50 meters. That's called upwelling, and it's responsible for the cold surface temperatures. But in an El Nino, the trade winds diminish, and in some cases actually reverse. Without the trade winds, upwelling diminishes. The cold water from the depths remain far below the surface, and the surface warms. So it is this relationship between the wind and the ocean that causes the changes we know as El Nino. I'm Jim Cantori, the Weather Channel.
Good night for an El Nino Focus. Coming up, problems for rush hour commuters here tomorrow. We'll have that forecast, plus a look out toward the weekend, right here on the Weather Channel.
This is your local forecast. Weather information you can plan on, only on the Weather Channel.
More money? Of course, we all do.
That's 1-800-427-0198 for free career information. Call now.
The Michelin Travel Wise is brought to you by Michelin and your local Michelin dealer.
Rain along the entire length of Interstate 75 and half of I-10. That's the story for morning rush hour. This is our current map, but it's not going to change too much between now and morning rush hour. We've got a saturated lower level of the atmosphere, and it is just going to fog up. I mean, it's not foggy at your place in the Bronx or in Newton, Massachusetts, or Roxbury. Well, it will be soon. You know what it was like this morning. It's going to be just like that here tomorrow morning. And it looks as if the rain will end in Chicago later on tonight. That should give rise to some fog. So watch it out there on the Edens and on Lakeshore Drive. This is a look at tomorrow morning's map in terms of where we think the precipitation is going to be coming down. And where you see green, that's where we're going for rain. Can you read that over there on the couch? Green is rain. This color indicates icy. We've got some freezing drizzle right now in Burlington, Vermont, but interestingly, up at Mount Washington, it is raining at 34 degrees. You got to go way up or way north to find any frozen precipitation at all. A little bit of frozen precipitation not out of the realm of possibility here in East Texas and Louisiana, but that would be in the form of hail produced by some springtime thunderstorms. And there's a chance of more rain, drizzle, Tallahassee up to Atlanta and Charlotte. So be ready for that. Status quo, basically no changes since this morning. Same story up here. But then as we head west, we head into a drier, cooler air mass. And well, that would make travel no problem around Denver, Evergreen, Cherry Lake, up toward Fort Collins and Cheyenne, no problems. Then we hit that next storm, and it's raining right now north of Seattle on 5. And some rain will be falling later on tonight in Sacramento. But the big problem is the flooding and the strong thunderstorms producing gusty winds and, yes, the possibility of hail throughout the night. Houston, New Orleans, Jackson, and Mobile. Well, coming up next, we'll take it beyond this morning's rush hour and tomorrow morning's rush hour and envision our future.
How is your weekend weather looking? The Weekend Outlook just ahead.
It's as far as Michelin science has ever gone. Our biggest breakthrough since we invented the radial. Technology that brings us to a new level of performance, in good weather and bad. In the rain, in the snow. Technology so advanced, it even saves gas. The new energy tires with Radial XSE technology from Michelin. It's science that goes beyond magic.
Find Michelin tires at this dealer near you because so much is riding on your tires.
Evenings on the Weather Channel. Today's top stories, tonight's developments, and what to expect tomorrow. A comprehensive weather picture on the Weather Channel every night.
To the weekend we go. It's been cool in the west. It's going to stay cool in the west. It's been warm from the Mississippi River east. It's going to get cool from the Mississippi River east. Here we go on Friday, Saturday, 70s get smushed down into the Everglades by the time Sunday gets here. And then we're just about normal, just about average, no brutally Arctic outbreak here. I'll tell you, since about Halloween, we've gotten off pretty easily, especially up here in the northern tier of states where it can get so brutally cold. But we shouldn't be celebrating yet because even though it won't be below zero, it'll be below freezing. And there's going to be some very heavy snow here for a day or two. Then another system comes in, and that should kind of reinforce the action here around the Great Lakes, while it appears as if the heavy rain moves into the northeast Friday and Saturday before you guys get cut a break second half of the weekend. Meanwhile, here in California, it's been pretty dry lately, hasn't it? But the rain has begun in San Francisco, and as you can see by our maps, our forecasters don't believe that we'll be done with it tomorrow. Unfortunately, it'll be cloudy all the way through the weekend on the West Coast. Well, we're jumping ahead toward the weekend. We go back and forth here. If you just tuned in, you are right on time for a look at tomorrow's weather, starting with morning rush hour. We'll have that and a look at the next 5 days after this.
How is our current winter weather being affected by El Nino? Find out on our El Nino Focus.
This commercial is rated H for high laughter.
You can wait until you get there to see what the weather is, or you can call ahead. Call 1-900-WEATHER, any city, anytime, from the Weather Channel. Turn to the Weather Channel tomorrow morning for up-to-the-minute reports on weather affecting your day, travel, or commute. Get the information you need every morning on the Weather Channel.
Hey, mister,
This is your local forecast. Weather information you can plan on, only on the Weather Channel. Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
Welcome to the 5-Day Planner. One big change that's going to be occurring across the central part of the country, the diving in of some cold air from Canada all the way down into Texas, where it has been unusually mild. Let's begin our journey with a look at the jet stream and we see what's going to be happening. We have two branches of the jet. That's typical of an El Nino year. As we go into today, we've had a trough across Texas digging down, and this has been the moisture conveyor, if you will, carrying that moisture from the Gulf all the way up into the Ohio Valley. Heavy rains associated with it. But as we go into the weekend, this northern branch of the jet is going to dip southward. That is going to allow some cold air to come in, and as a low in the south meets up with this colder air, by the weekend, Friday anyway, we could see some significant snows and blowing snow across the north central part of the country. Stay tuned, as the saying goes. How about Wednesday's weather? Let's take a look at what's going to be happening tomorrow as we begin our journey through the next 5 days. We'll take a look at what's happening here with Wednesday's weather. Rain showers and flooding rains, because you've heard of that Bermuda high over here. It's been blocking the system from moving very fast. Therefore, the same rain over the same places, at least the same source for the rain over the same places, and still opened up will be the west coast to the showers and some significant snows and fairly low snow levels. Here's Wednesday's highs, still mild in the southeast, and that continues pretty much going into Thursday. But there's the lows tonight. Wednesday night, temperatures in the single numbers across the north central part of the country, and there's that flow, the temperature gradient here, that southwesterly flow, milder. Friday's lows. Here comes the Arctic air all the way down from Canada. Some of that Arctic air shaking loose. It's so heavy and dense, it wants to come down, and it's going to come down as we go into the weekend in a big way. Sunday's lows again on the cold side. Can you imagine, if you don't live in the Dakotas, how cold it's going to be Saturday night in the minus teens across the north central part of the country. Thursday's highs, good golfing weather in Orlando, highs in the 80s. There's some cold air, and it's only going to grow, sink southward as an Arctic high nudges down, and we could see a mixture of snow mixing in with a low over the Gulf that's going to develop and move toward the north. So Saturday, it's going to be a very cold one. And you can see Sunday's highs too, generally icebox weather over the north central part of the country. We're looking at some inclement weather in the southeast and a mixture of precipitation over the New England area as we go into Friday. It's going to still be wet across the west coast. How about Saturday? Well, the weekend in Little Rock looks okay for some tennis, but on the west coast you do need the umbrella. That continues into Sunday, and with a mixture across the nation's midsection, a mixture of wintry weather. The eyes of the science world are on Cape Canaveral tonight. The first mission to the moon in 25 years is set to launch. These are live pictures from the Cape. The weather is looking good. The launch is coming up on WeatherScope after your local